My name is Jennifer Irons and I'm a choreographer, producer, performer, project manager. I'll stop there. I've always been a dancer. I've always been making dance. I've always been putting on shows with the neighborhood kids and ruining my parents' social lives. And it took me a long time to decide to actually do it as a career. I had worked in events management in big sporting events like the World Cup of Skateboarding and music events at clubs and things like that for about 7 years, and came to a realization that I was going to work my ass off for someone else. And I was just going to have to work my ass off in life. And one of the things that had deterred me from pursuing dance was I thought I didn't have the discipline for it. So when I realized that it was going to be work no matter what I did, I decided to do something I loved. So I started training at the age of 25, which is very late for a dancer, but had been dancing the whole time in kind of after school classes and things like that. And had always been a choreographer. So when I was training, I was always making pieces on the other students, much to the annoyance of my teachers who wanted me to focus on getting my leg up over my head. But I've always been the kind of person that brings other people together, and generally with me being the boss and telling them all what to do. So it turns out that's what you do as a choreographer. After I left school, I danced for a few companies, but right away started making work again. Started up a company the first year after I graduated. We made about a half a dozen shows and toured around the UK, started doing workshops, and around kind of my last year in training, I got into what's now referred to as inclusive practice. At the time, it was referred to as dance and disability, but the whole ethos and the approach was about working with people in movement and with their body, not the body of somebody else at the front of the room, which is how we'd all been trained to copy somebody, which is like giving somebody a box of crayons and saying, make a Matisse. You have different tools. Inherently, the tool that you use in dance is your body, and we've all got different tools. So discovering inclusive practice was a revelation. It turned out that I wasn't bad. I just wasn't like everybody else in the room. And I wanted to be part of that movement going forwards. So in a nutshell, developed a program called Iron Ink in Africa, where I work once a year, if I can, in different countries in Africa with different partnering organizations. And what I understood and learned from inclusive practice very much feeds into that, about working with, and it used to be disability, but now it's about, you work with people from a different background, speak a different language, have a different understanding of dance, a different cultural attitude towards the body. All of these things can either hinder a project or be the things that make it really exciting. And for me, that's the thing I find really exciting. So that program's been going for 6 years now. I'm the other half of Make Amplify, who I think you had the first half of Make Amplify a few months ago, with Zach Walker, audiovisual artist, and myself working with movement and digital technology. We do large-scale dance, music, audio, installations, performances, durational installations that take over buildings and disused spaces and places that people consider ugly or ignored. We love them. When I was training at the place, the maintenance department was my summer job. The head of the maintenance department was from Hull, and I used to hear all these stories about this place, and in his very thick Hull accent. And I learned some really great catchphrases, which I won't say on camera because none of them are appropriate. And now when I do projects nationally and I get offered places to come, I choose to come to Hull. I love it here. I think it's one of the coolest cities. It's got so much happening and the people are amazing.
Hi, my name is Jen Wu and I'm an artist. I guess you could say a political artist. I was in London for 11 years and then was invited up to Manchester by the Chinese Arts Centre in Manchester for a 3-month residency back in 2011, just after the riots happened. And it was something that happened, I don't know, sort of within a week of being in Manchester, realised like this is the place for me. So by the end of the residency, just basically moved up, and I've been working on a project basically for the last 3 years in Salford. Originally called The Wall, then became the Salford Wall, and it's an ongoing project, but sort of stopped in the meantime while I've joined the Manchester homeless camps, which is what I've been doing for the last 3 months. Initially it was about, I wanted to look into the legacy of the hacienda and sort of that time in Manchester, and what I've been doing in London before was a lot about kind of like grassroots stuff, and I caught the tail end of rave when it was in the States, and I didn't realize how much that changed my outlook on life and possibility and what was being kind of taken away by it within society. And there was this trajectory to do with I guess kind of from the riots, but then looking at the hacienda and then it being demolished and then turned into luxury apartments, and this identity and this history being sold back, and about people coming together and making change in the material world, and how all these things are slowly being taken away from us through, whether it's building demolition of social space, and things being privatized, and things becoming virtual, and our sort of like material capacity being taken away from us. So I kind of thought, what if you could take something in the material world, like, a brick wall, and what if you could do like a demolition rave and then do a reconstruction rave? And it was sort of about expressing and materializing these histories, but having something left over, whereas, so many of these places, like every time I tried to go to one of these nightclubs, like they were demolished, and so you would have this wall, that you could take apart brick by brick and then reassemble it brick by brick and somehow regain something that's been lost. I had heard about this like march for the homeless, and I couldn't go, and then about a month later, that happened in April this year, and then about a month later some friends of mine organized something called Make Noise for the Homeless, and then I found out that what happened off the back of that march is that a homeless camp had basically been set up in front of the town hall, and was there since the 15th of April. So they'd been moved to the library at St. Peter's Square. Basically the law was there to uphold private property rights. The council got to evict the homeless from Albert Square and St. Peter's Square because they're not public space, they're actually private property. So it's like the law is there to uphold private property rights of the council. There's no public accountability, no public protection. And I realized something very, very bad was going on. So from that point forward, I spent a lot of time at the camps and basically moved in June, and I've been basically living with the camps since then and getting quite involved, and now I'm being taken to court and potentially sent to prison for my involvement, and basically for running a Facebook page and speaking the truth. I think Hull would be a really good place to start making some good connections and just talking, creating, working out just how things happen, because things need to happen now. Things are becoming really, really urgent.
My name is Laura Robertson, and I'm editor and co-founder of an online magazine called The Double Negative, and it provides arts criticism and cultural commentary in Liverpool and the North West and the UK. So I graduated from a visual arts BA at the University of Salford and lived in Manchester for 6 years. And during that time I noticed that my hometown, Liverpool, had changed quite considerably. I was really intrigued by the Liverpool European Capital of Culture. When I graduated in 2008, I decided to come back to Liverpool and join a studio group and gallery called the Royal Standard, and that was really a key moment for me, realising as an arts graduate what was really possible, and it really made me think about what was fantastic about Liverpool and the North West, and also what was really missing. So from the Royal Standard, working with artists, noticing a lack of arts press, noticing a lack of critical discussion about the fantastic arts offer we had in Liverpool, I decided to set up my own platform. to talk about those things. So I think critical discussion is a really important part of the healthy arts scene, and I think that's what's interesting about Hull moving forward to 2017. So I came to Hull this year for the first time for the Digital Utopias conference, which was hosted by Abandoned Normal Devices Festival and Arts Council England, and it's like Hull Truck Theatre, and it really had a kind of sense of momentum for me, of what's really possible at art spaces with the use of new technology. I've also been on a tour of the GF Smith Paper Factory, which I'd really recommend. It's awesome. I think Hull's lucky to have such a prestigious, beautiful quality paper company here that thinks about artists, and I think that's a resource that could be really utilised by artists and designers who live in Hull, so that'll be interesting. I think from my experience of Capital of Culture 2008, I'd really like artists in Hull to think about what they're getting out of the Arts Award. It's not just all about shopping centres and council-led initiatives. It's about doing something for you and what you think is important, and making sure that you're catered to as a resident and that visitors just aren't always the priority. So I'd really like to see what artists are going to be starting themselves and maintaining. New galleries, new pop-up spaces, new collectives and studios, people ganging together and doing art fairs in different cities. I think there's an excitement and potential here, and I can't wait to see it grow.
Show some warmth, please, for Liz West.
My name is Liz West, and I make immersive light installations in sculpture using luminous light and radiant colour. I became self-employed in 2010, and from that point have worked full-time as an artist ever since. I used my degree show work to apply for opportunities up and down the country, and one application that was successful was for an exhibition at the Green Room in Manchester, and also at Blank Media Collective's gallery, Blank Space, also in Manchester. And those two opportunities gave me a very different output. You know, the Green Room, I showed pre-existing work, whereas at Blank Space I was given the opportunity to make completely new, really ambitious site-specific work, and I also was awarded Arts Council England funding to make that show. So between those two things, it gave me a real platform to move forward, and it's been from that point really that I have been able to continue my practice, get a studio in Manchester, get more Arts Council funding, and now I'm working mainly for commissions and making solo exhibitions. The last 7 months I've been working on a £30,000 commission for the National Media Museum in Bradford. The exhibition is called Light Fantastic, and it's been produced to coincide with the International Year of Light, and I've made my most expensive, ambitious and potentially thought-provoking piece to date, whereby all colours culminate in white light. When I made Your Colour Perception at Federation House, what I didn't anticipate was that it would open my practice up to a lot of other people besides those in the art world. So, you know, I'm now having conversation with musicians, producers, architects, lighting designers, and also have been published in magazines internationally. And so it's made me realise that by doing and making something I just was totally in love with, other people would see that passion and also love it too. My first impressions of Hull are all good. It's been painted as a place that is much like my hometown, you know, a South Yorkshire suburb, but it's not. It's really exciting. I think there's little art spaces starting to bubble and pop up. I think with the City of Culture in 2017, it's going to be fantastic for the city. I think things are really going to start happening. And another thing I've noticed is that there's a hub of artists that are making really beautiful and interesting work.